Is it dangerous to learn Kabbalah?
Too early.
Is it dangerous to take psychedelics?
If you're in the right mind and you're ready for it.
We're going to learn today about the idea of things that are above and how to integrate ideas that are above us, and also how to know that from the perspective of a Talmud, that there are certain things which may be above my understanding. Because the Talmud, a student, would be looking at the world from this perspective. As soon as he becomes a rebbi, he's now looking at the perspective from the top down. So the Talmud is like the bottom up, and the rebbi is the top down. So from the perspective of the Talmud, would it be dangerous that he exposes himself to things that he's not ready for? And also from the perspective of the rebbi, would he be allowed to expose things that are not appropriate to expose? Okay, so we're going to go into that topic here. So look at Ches. Gam ze achacham ador. Okay, Rabbi Isai, in the English edition, it's page 43. Gam ze achacham ador hanir, and we have Sfarim for everybody. Oh, Eli already got one.
Oh, that was the one from yesterday?
Let's go.
Should I go and grab it, or should I just...
Whatever you want, if you want to write notes.
Yeah, there's no show.
So Gam ze achacham ador hanir la'el. Also, this sage, tzarech leida eze makifin shehu tzarech lamshicham ve'eze makifin she'ein tzarech lamshicham. So let's just pay attention to where the movement of the Torah is and who the person of focus is. Who's the person of focus here? Is it on the rebbi or the student? Gam ze achacham ador. Also, this chacham, who's the rebbi, he needs to know which makifim, which higher concepts that he should bring down to his student. So it looks like the focus is on the rebbi right now. Ve'eze makifin she'ein tzarech lamshicham. And which higher concepts he should not. So when Rav Yegoda comes into Shir today, he has to think to himself, or Rav Blowski comes into Shir, he has to think, should I tell them all of Kabbalah today? Or should I tell them Chetzi? Should I go into the Tosfos? Yesh Lenidas, should we go into that Rabbi Kiva Eger? Are they ready for that? Wow, thank you. Yeah, Harry.
Is Lam Shicham, is that like from Lashon of like to continue?
Yes.
Lam Shich?
Yes.
Okay.
Which means it's like to pull something down, but to extend it from the Rebbe to the Talmud, which we know the whole Torah is talking about das, is the connection point. Well, how much can you reveal to the student? Are they able to experience? Will it be healthy for them? If a person's not ready to hear a certain concept, maybe it's not a makif that I should then reveal to them. Ubishvil says, so who's the focus so far in the Torah? Looks like the focus is on the Rebbe. The Rebbe should be careful to make sure not to overwhelm the students. Which, remember, Rabbi said that goes back to the beginning of the Torah of Rachamim, right? Kima Rachamim Yinagim. To not overwhelm the child because you want to take care of this baby. So what do you give a baby who's hungry? Milk. As opposed to Wagyu steak. Which means I have to know. You might want the Wagyu. We have to hold back. You want to give to that child. But you have to know what's the appropriate thing. So too, let's use that now with the Rebbe. The Rebbe wants to give food to the student. Can they digest the food properly? The Rebbe comes in and he just wants to say Kabbalah. Does the student have the digestive system? Do they have the enzymes available that could break down this type of content? You know the Rosh Shiva, you see what he has in his office? Alakut Maran, Pashat. Look on the side, you know his side bookshelf? That's where the goodies are. For the Oilam, he shows the Shas, the Mishnayos, Rambam, Mishnah Berurah. And on the side, Kutimaran, Kabbalah books over there. So when you go into the Rosh Yeshiva, should he pull those books off his shelf and say, Eliyahu, let's learn some Kabbalah? Or, I don't know, maybe I don't have the digestive juices available to break that information down. So it looks like the focus is right now on the rebbi. The rebbi has to know which makif and which food is yes good to give and which food not good to give. Ubishvil zeh. And because of this, yesh devarim she'ein rishoyim lagaloisem b'pnei talmidim. There are things that the rebbi will not have permission to reveal to the students because it won't be good for them. Not that it needs to hold it back. They won't be able to digest it. You want to give the baby Wagyu steak, that's just not appropriate. But what should you give them and must you give them? Milk. That's the food, that's the shefa, that's the Torah that they can then receive and integrate. You ever had an interaction, maybe with a family member, after you were a flaming Baal Tshuva in yeshiva for a couple months? And you go to them and you're like, you want to hear some amazing Vortlach on the Parsha? And they're like, whoa, inferno, careful. It's like too much. It has to be digestible. Not like I'm talking from experience or anything. No, we all learn as we go. It's a growth. It's a journey. It's growth. Just like the baby. The baby's growing and learning. That's right. Now, it's interesting. Who are the two, I don't want to say protagonists of our story here? There's the Rebbe and the Talmud, but there's another category, which we learned about before. Not the Rebbe and the Talmud, but who? The father and the son. The Ben. We learned about the Talmud and the Ben, the student and the son. So why do we see here, Daniel, that the Rebbe could have said, and because of this, you don't have certain permission to reveal things to your Ben. He goes with, you don't have permission to reveal certain things to your student. He goes with student first. What about the Ben? I could reveal everything to the Ben. Okay, if you now reveal these things to your student, so now the Rebbe makes kind of a move you have to really pay attention to. You kansu makifen acherim b'soich sichloi kanal. It will come into, we don't know who it is, the Rebbe's mind or the student's mind. Higher levels of consciousness. And sometimes he doesn't need to receive these higher levels of consciousness yet. So wait a second. This whole section began that the Rebbe has to be very careful to only share digestible things with the student. Using the analogy also of the person wanting to feed the child. It has to be things that the child can digest. Now all of a sudden what happens? We see that because of this, you don't have to say everything, because it shouldn't be that higher lights of consciousness come in that you're not ready for. Does that mean to the student, or does that mean into the mind of the Rebbe? Because remember we said in the last part of the Torah, that when you share something, a higher consciousness comes into you at that moment. Is this a danger for the student? That makes sense. But is it also a danger for the Rebbe? Because he'll share something, and then the Rebbe will get a download of something that's maybe he's not ready for.
I think if the Rebbe is able to share the one thing, I think that he's probably on that level and ready for it.
Yeah, because if you go to download, why would he not be ready?
Yeah. If you have it, kind of work that in your brain enough to be able to share it with someone else. 'Cause
Oh, okay. You're saying good. You're saying good. Yeah, Moshe.
I also think it's not like the worst thing in the world for a rebbi to teach a student something that even at the time the student wouldn't understand. Like there are times where you might learn something and be super confused, and then however much long later you think about it again, you at that point you just remember and you realize it, and then you're able to project.
Oh.
That's it. After thinking about it for a while.
They didn't realize that at the time, but a few years later, like, you know what that Rebbe said? You know, Rabbi Green was actually right. You know, he said a whole bunch of things that, like, now that I see in, retrospect, it was really actually very honest. Even though at the time things were sometimes hard to digest. But let's put it this way. Are there things that are a little bit above my understanding? Yeah. Are there things that are way above my understanding? Yeah. Should the Rebbe tell you things that are a little bit above your understanding or things that are way above your understanding? A little bit, because if it's way above, then where does it leave me? So let's just proceed a little bit and you'll see how he's going to open up this Torah. He says a mashal, kamoy la-mashal. Kishe harav medaberem talmidoi, eze pshat begapat. So, la-mashal. Like a Rav who's speaking to his students and he's telling them a pshat in Gapat. Gapat means Gemara, parish places. They're learning Gemara. And they're holding somewhere in, where's the Olam holding right now? Yesh Lamidas? Still there?
We just got afterwards.
You just finished that?
We started the game, the Friday. Yeah.
Oh, so you're in a world of Yesh Lamidas. And the Rebbe is teaching you something. He says a pshat. He says a pshat in Rashi. And you're learning the Gemara. That was a very nice way to read Rashi. Very nice. Ubetoich devarav. Now watch this. He's taking you into a mashal right now. Ubetoich devarav. And as soon as the Rebbe said this pshat, he's saying out Rashi. Maybe he never taught this part, but he's saying out Rashi. Hu ba al eze kushia. So all of a sudden, the Rebbe himself thinks of a kasha. He said a pshat, and all of a sudden the Rebbe's like, wait a second, hold on. Wait a second. I think the Taiz is here. Or even the way that Rashi said it, no, it can't be. It's not the oh, no. So he said a pshat, but then all of a sudden he gets this kasha. A kasha comes into his mind. V'oisoi hakushia haya b'chinas makif eitzloi. By the way, who is the eitzlo? The rebbi or the Talmud? Before he heard this kasha, it was a makif. It was beyond him. Okay, so he's saying Gemara, learning up the sugya, says a Rashi, and all of a sudden, a kasha pops into his brain. He's like, wow, it's good kasha. So before that, it was a makif. It was somewhere beyond him. It was a makif. It was beyond. Ki lo yodem mimena betchila. He never thought of this kasha. It just came to him. V'tekif, and immediately, kishenoithel b'sichloi zoysa kushia, hu oimre b'fnei Talmud. So he then says the kasha to the Talmud. He's like, Rabbi said, I know we just said a pshat and Rashi, but you should know I had an einfal. Something just came into me. You guys know the word einfal? I had an einfal. You don't know einfal? You're not in yeshiva long enough. An einfal. An einfal means like a eureka, like it just fell into my brain. Yeah, hear it?
What is teika?
Teika means immediately. We're going to go back. Ramoti said a very beautiful pshat on the word teikif last night. So hold on to teikif. It means immediately. Immediately when the kasha came into his mind, he says it to them. He's like, no, Rabbi said, whoa. He said the pshat and Rashi. And then all of a sudden the Rabbi's like, whoa, hold on, Rabbi said. Everything I just said, I don't know if that's emes because a kasha just came into my mind in Rashi. He's like, whoa. He like stops the shear. Wait, hold on. I got to tell you this kasha that just came to my mind. Everything was fine until then. They're learning Gemara Rashi. Everything is gleich. It's just flowing. Everything's going well. And boom! A kasha comes into his mind. Ubetoich kach. And while this is going on, k'shemazbir loy hakushia, so he's telling the Talmidim the kasha. Like, this kasha it cannot be. Because Rashi says over there in Chulin, punkt fakert. Of course you know what that means. Punkt fakert. Means the exact opposite, Rashi indicates in Chulin. So everyone's like handling this kasha. And right away what happens? What goes on in the Rebbe's mind? Neufel b'sichloi teretz ala kushya. Then all of a sudden the Rebbe's like, he gets an answer. So what does he do? Nimtza shechoizer masig makif acher shehu teretz ala kushya. So he's learning everything is fine. He gets a kasha. He says immediately the kasha. Everyone's like, whoa, it's a good kasha. Immediately, he gets a teretz in his mind. Then he tells the teretz to the tam. I know you thought that was a kasha of the Rashi and Chulin, but really, shiny hasam. It's different over there. Okay? But then something happens. Once he answers that to the Talmud, as a nichnas by oid makif acher, but now a higher makif, a higher consciousness comes into him. V'az al dezeh seichel shaba olav ata, and he gets this torrential energy of kasha again. I know that I thought that was an answer, but now the kasha is even bigger. Why is the kasha bigger? Hadra kusha leduchta ve'adra ba'ata kusha chazoka urechova yoiser mibatchila. Why is the kasha bigger? So let's just go through the sequence. Everything is fine. Gemara Rashi, and the Rebbe has a kasha. No, it's a Rashi in Chulin. It says punkt fakir. I was like, whoa, good kasha. And then immediately what happens? Oh, shiny hasam. It's different over there. But then he gets an even bigger kasha. Whoa, if I say that it's different over there, that's going to make even a bigger problem. And he gets a bumba kasha. And he says, now that's even more problematic in my original kasha and Rashi. Which means before he started asking this bumba, this first kasha, everything was fine in the Gemara. Everyone's just reading the Gemara, everything's fine. Just, we're proceeding on the main thoroughfare, Gemara Rashi. All of a sudden the Rebbe asked the kasha, said the kasha, a teretz came into him, said the teretz, and I was like, oh, fine, Baruch Hashem. But then a bigger bumba kasha came into his mind, and that made a major earthquake in the sugya, which made the original question even stronger. Because why is the original question even stronger? Because even once you answered the original question, there was still a teretz, there was still a kasha, which means the original answer is not so strong. Because there's still a kasha on that. Now, imagine how far up you could go, right here. If this is makifin and makifin, so then the Rebbe is going to say a teretz. But then what's going to happen to his mind? It's going to be another kasha. Which then the kasha is going to be even more bumba, because that kasha is, even with two terutzim, there was still a kasha. So I'll say a teretz on that. But now the teretz is going to be big, because even with three bumba kashas, there's a teretz. But then there's going to be another kasha on that. And even with three bumba terutzim, there's still a kasha.
Why couldn't you just write it down?
So this is what I think the problem is. Look at the word takif. What's the word takif mean? Immediately.
Immediately, yeah.
Where was the problem here? And this is the whole theme of this section, is that the Chacham has to know when to say what. Just because some Bumba Kasha came into your mind, you need to take it, say it, you have to immediately say it. It could be that you're, I think they say, opening up a can of worms with this one. You need to know, is this going to be digestible information? If I just immediately say this, so then you're going to open up makifin coming into you, which not only for your sake, but for the Talmud's sake, this might take him who knows where. Which means, where did this all start? It started with the takif. I think, Dav Shlomo, this is what you're saying, is that maybe just write down the question. The Rebbe should write it down. Is this question going to be such a question that's going to just open up makifin that will not end? Because when will shir end? You know, like schnitzel's coming up. This will open up higher makifin. Nimtza, says the Rebbe. So now a higher consciousness comes into him. The Hainu Seichel Chodosh. So now the kasha comes back even stronger. It's even more powerful than it was in the beginning. Which means, really, if the Rebbe would have just said Gemara Rashi, everything would have been fine. As soon as he had this kasha that came into him, because he said it, he said Gemara Rashi. So now he's nisroikin. He made space for a higher makif to come in. And a kasha came in. It looks like there was a problem in the takif. He felt like he had to say it. Maybe it's gaiva. Maybe the Rebbe's like, oh, the world needs to hear my kasha. Are you sure? Maybe you need to hear your kasha, but the Talmud doesn't need to hear the kasha. That almost sounds a little bit like going back to, you would want steak if you were crying and hungry. But the baby doesn't need steak. And therefore you have, by the way, is this all rachamim? Of course it is, teaching Torah. Is there any greater rachamim than to bestow das to somebody? To give them Torah? Like the Gemara says, your father brings you into this world, but your rebbi brings you into the world to come. Is there any greater rachamim to help a human being get to the world to come? Well, there's not. So you could have all the good feelings, but if your das doesn't know what to share, so is this actually going to help the Talmud? Could be you're going to go into a spiral of kasha teretz. There's no end to that.
But then if he didn't share it, what if he just didn't get those ideas? If he was meant to get those ideas?
Him sharing Gemara Rashi is very important. It looks like the problem started that once the Rebbe shared, the Rebbe got a makif. The Rebbe got some new insight. Does your student need to hear this? Or do you need to say it? Is the Rebbe giving shir for the Talmud or for himself?
But then, yeah, right. So writing,
No? Yeah, it's definitely both.
yeah, because you say the teachers learn so much from the students, but writing it down, so maybe just for him.
For him. Maybe for him. That makif that came in, that kasha, maybe was good for him to know. But if he says that kasha out, then what's going to come into him? A new teretz. Now he wants to say the teretz. He doesn't want to leave people in a kasha. But as soon as he says the teretz, what happens? Oh, do you know the kasha now that I have? That was the Rashi in Chulin. Do you understand? Oh. And he can't stop. Because he wants to leave them with a teretz.
That's an idea.
Teretz is the answer. So he's opening something big up here. Now, that was all a mashal. That was all an analogy. Why is that a good analogy? Because we all learn Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. That's something that we relate to. We relate to the Rav teaching over a sugya, having a kasha, saying it, maybe it coming to an out. One of the Chai Klolim is that, which is the 18 principles of how we learn Likutei Moharan, and they're actually printed, as you see here, the Chai Klolim, look on your little page keeper on the front and the back of these beautiful Italian Torah editions, also in the Torah. Pardon?
I don't think it's in the English ones.
In the English, in the Kol Torah Chaim, they put them in the back, in English. What page is that on? By the way, Rabbi Isai, one of the things that we are encouraging in this whole project is we're teaching people how to learn Likutei Moharan, which is a big part of what this is all about. Did they put it in the English one this time? Could be they didn't put it in the English one this time. No, they did. They did at the beginning. The beginning. Mamish right at the beginning. That's right. That's right. Page 7. Okay, page 7. This is the 18 principles of how to learn Likutei Moharan. I was speaking to somebody on my way in, and we were speaking about how to learn Likutei Moharan. That there's really a way to learn Likutei Moharan, and this is it. These 18 principles will teach you how to move through Likutei Moharan in a responsible way. Now, one of them is principle number 3. Look at principle number 3 on page 8. Dugmois and mashalim. When the Rebbe quotes a certain mashal, a certain analogy, he's not quoting this analogy as like, just, it's always nice to bring an analogy. It like makes everything more colorful. It fills in a story for you. Helps you relate to it better. When the Rebbe quotes an analogy, it's always the analogy that it has to be. It's an ikr in the Torah. It wasn't, we could have chose anything. There was like 10 good analogies. We just picked one out of a hat. This is one of the good ones. It's the analogy. And therefore, the Rebbe used Gemara Rashi Tosfos as the analogy. We'll see what the analogy is for. But he says this is the analogy. So you have to start thinking when you go through Likutei Moharan, why was this the analogy? It was bidavka. It had to be this analogy for him to drive his point forward. And the medicine, this is not medical advice, but the medicine of this Torah. This is medicinal stuff. So why was this the medicine? So you can think about that. So that was all in the analogy. So now that it goes into, okay, so what is the analogy for? What's the reality? There's an analogy. And a mashal is always, I like to say, an analogy for reality. That there's the nimshal is the reality, and the mashal is an analogy that you relate to because it's pulling you into the reality that you're going through. The reality is always supposed to be a higher thing. That's why you need an analogy to pull you towards the higher thing, because the analogy is something that you relate to. So there's a story of a king and a son. Okay, I've heard of a king, I know a son. No, that was really an analogy for God and his people. Oh, from the analogy I could relate, to the bigger story. So the Kamoi Kain in the Torah is, and so too now, this is what I'm trying to teach you about, Yesh Bahasogus. What do Hasogus mean? Any idea. Not just Gemara Rashi Tosfos. So, the analogy was, Gemara Rashi Tosfos, the Rebbe sang a shir, Gemara Rashi, and a kushya comes into him, and he wants to say it, and he does. Oh, maybe he shouldn't have said that, because that just opened up another teretz, which now is another kasha, which is another teretz. So the Rebbe has to know what things, yes, like we said, Tzarech leida ezem akifin shut tzarech lamshicham, the ones that you need to pull forward. Ve'ezem akifin ein tzarech lamshicham. Maybe 2 kashas fell into your mind, and one you should say to the Talmud, and the other one is not to be said. He has to know which one, yes, how to present it. Is it digestible food? For the one that you have rachamim for, you're trying to give them Torah. So let's now see this gleich. Gleich means straight through. Kamoi ken yesh ba'asogus. So too when it comes to any idea. Sheyesh dvarim she'osur lagaloisam. Ki im yegal zeh teretz b'fnei Talmud. If you share this comes now in anything. It's interesting. He starts with Gemara Rashi Tosfos, and then he says anything. It sounds like you learn Kabbalah together. What are you learning now? Yich nois boy makev chodosh. Shal yodo yeakusha chazak urochavi yosim betchila. So now something of a kasha is going to come in, and then a teretz, and then a kasha. Ad sheyuchal ikonos ba'asogus makifin. Okay, look at this. Shem lamala min azman. Is this the rebbi or the Talmud?
Rebbi.
Seemingly it's the rebbi.
It's above, because he's giving over certain things until the rebbi, like the rebbi's always just one step above. But you're pulling the student up also.
When it says beyond time, is that they're unexplainable at all, or is it the time?
Okay, we already kind of touched on this world in the Torah of beyond time. What was that? That was Olam Haba. Remember we said the Dora Mala? They're like Olam Haba. There are makifim that are endless makifim, endless makifim. So imagine now you're in a Kabbalah shir, and the Rebbe says something, and then a good kasha comes into the Rebbe's mind. If he asks this kasha, he knows that he's going to have to give a teretz to the kasha. But then there's going to be a higher kasha, and then a teretz. He is going to go into places that there will be not enough time to explain to his student. He'll say, like, I could reveal this to you, but I know you had you were going out for lunch with the boys at 1:30 p.m. Like, there won't be time for that. This shir is just going to go on for the next, 120 years. Like, I'm not sure, lunch, like, that's clipped. There's nothing to talk about. There's no time. There's like, mamish. If we enter this topic, and sometimes the Rebbe will say, like, you want to go into this topic? You sure you want to go into this topic? I don't know if there's enough time. Well, there is in a world beyond time. It's almost like you're telling the Talmud, like, I want to deal with this, but we should probably talk about this in the Olam Haba.
Yeah, it's like reach mind.
Now, by the way, this is one of the ikr nukudas that on the last day of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's life. So the Zohar discusses that Rabbi Shimon had this kind of vikoach. He had this kind of inner thing of there are secrets that I want to reveal, but I don't know if I could reveal it down here, because if I do, it's not going to end.
And since even the Malachim came and listened to it.
That's right.
So even up there, they didn't know this one.
That's right.
Revealed at least.
And he wanted to save these revelations for once we all go upstairs. But it's said that he decided to say it down here. But it says that the sun did not set because the angel of the sun was afraid of Reb Shimon. And the angel of the sun said, okay, I won't set until you finish saying what you need to say. Which means he brought Olam Haba down here, which means it was whatever time needed to be. It was above time, but it was in time. It was like a blurring of those worlds. So he did say it. He said it. That's why we have the Zohar, which is really an idea, even in this world, of something that's up there. That was really supposed to be up there, because there's ein zman, it's lamalim and azman. Look at this next language. She'ein azman maspik lavor hakushiyas, because the time is not enough to explain all the kushiyas in the terutzim sheyesham, ki heim lamala me'azman. Because if you enter into this world of these secrets, there's no time. You can only fully cover this once you get to the world that's lamalim and azman. And remember we said before but there is zman up there. What's the zman of Olam Haba?
Infinite, mostly.
We said it's a zman of yomim and shonim, but there the zman is hasagas of makifin. It's not, do I have enough time during the day? It's every day is another makif, and then there's a makif of years, and there's high and high makifin. It's lamalim and azman, because there's no time as we know it, but it is a type of zman, which means makifin, higher understandings, which we spoke about. Even down here, a day is a certain makif as well, which means what am I going to do today? We hope most people can generally plan their day, which is also, when we spoke about that Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in Yeshuva Shel Olam. What does Yeshuva Shel Olam mean?
Settling the world.
Helping to settle the world. If a person has an idea of time, he's a settled person. When a guy has no concept of time, he's not really settled in this world. Time balances a person. It's part of Yeshuva Shel Olam, that there's time. Rabbi said something deep to me, and he was explaining that the philosophers make a big thing about this. That really time and space go together. And time and space are very important in Yeshuva Shel Olam, Dora Mata. How do time and space go together?
Einstein.
Because how do I have reference of space? I have reference of space because I'm here and the door is over there. And it would take me 3 seconds to walk to the door. If there's no time, then there's no space. Why not? Because I'm not here.
You would be at the door.
I'm there. I'm nowhere. If there's no time, there's no space. Time and space, and the old philosophers spoke about this. Because time and space is a very deep thing. Isaac's liking this. Once there's time and space, which are creations of Dor and Mata, so now there's a concept of I'm actually here, I feel stable, I'm here, I'm not at the door. And really I'm nowhere. Because what's the door in reference? It's only because it takes me time to get there. And the fact that I'm here and it takes me a few seconds to get there, it means I know where I am. I feel comfortable and confident that I am right here. So in the world of Yeshuva Shel Olam, it's very important that I have concepts of space, time. It's very balancing for me. It makes me stable.
How do you get Yeshuva Shalom?
Das. Das is Yeshuva Shel Olam. To know that God runs the world. I want to present the question. Is there Yeshuva Shel Olam for the Dor Mala? You also have to feel settled up there. Because we also said there is Zman up there. It's just Makifin. Which means I know that I'm in this Pinimi relative to the next Makif. There's also some distinction. There's also Yeshuva Shel Olam up there. There's also Yeshuva Shel Olam up there. Yeah.
When you're in Olam Haba, does the soul take up a distinct amount of space as well? Because if there's time, you say they go hand in hand, so there has to be a certain amount of space.
There is, yeah. That's why it says that you can go to you'll be in your yeshiva, you can go visit Rashi's yeshiva. But there, it's not space as we know it, and time as we know it. We said it's l'malam and azman. It's just hasagas, it's higher awarenesses. I have an interesting question. If Rabbi Yugoda tells you a good kasha, and then he tells you a teretz, did you get closer to him in space? You did, just not physical space. I was farther, and now I got closer to. So there is a space. There is somewhere that I move to.
Mental space.
It's just, it's called meta space?
No, I said mental space.
Mental space. There's a certain space, but it's much more refined than just like, yeah, I'm 1 yard from the end line. Touchdown, shkoyach. That's very coarse movement in space. Here, there is a space, but it's a very sublime movement in space. So here, if the Rebbe then reveals this thing in Hasaga, he has to be aware that it could be I'm entering a place that there won't be enough time in this world because I'm going to open up makifin. Ki kol mashu megala eze seichel kusha oiteritz nichnas boy seichel chodosh shu bechinas makif kanal al kain im lo yen nizar b'davar ledaktik eze davar legalois eze davar shaloi legalois. If the Rebbe is not careful, to be careful what yes to say that will be digestible, what not to say, al dezeh yenichnas bekushos v'terutzim she'ein azman maspik lavaram. He's going to get to a place, there's not going to be enough time. It's like he's pulling a student up to Olam Haba. Ki heim bechinas makifin shem l'malam min azman kanal. Al kain, therefore, muchroch, it's necessary for the Chacham Lasix siyag ledevarav. The Chacham has to put a protection on his words. Ledaktik, to be specific, ulazar, ma legalois, ma shaloi legalois. What to reveal, what to share. And that's going to be the das of the Rachamim. I care about you, I want you to have Torah. But it's going to be good for you. To give the student the makifin that are going to be the good things. Let's speak a minute about the Ben and the Talmud. Later in the Torah, the Rebbe is going to say that the Ben is called Dore Mala, and the Talmud is Dore Mata. The Ben is Dore Mala, and the Talmud is Dore Mata.
Shouldn't we think it's the opposite?
You might have thought that. And we'll learn, even though, remember we said that the Ben now still has to become a Talmud, and the Talmud is a Ben. So they really are koilel one in the next. And we already discussed, what was the messaging that you give to somebody who's a Dore Mala person? That they're still far. Because if someone who's Dore Mala is like holding in all the hasagas and makifin, and the mamish feels like he's all the way up there. And that person, you have to tell him, Rabbi, bro, like, ma pishashta, what have you really achieved? Like, there's so many more makifin. And what do we tell the guy who's Dore Mata? You're right next to Hashem. Maloi chala aretz kavoda. Hashem is with you. Hashem loves you. The ones who are dwelling up there and the ones that are dwelling down here. That's right. Mata means down here. Dore means the dwellers. Like ladur, to live. So I'm going to leave you, and I hope I'm being responsible now with a kasha. I don't know if I'm being responsible. I hope so. But I think it's a kasha that's only a makif. That's appropriate. We just said here that the Rebbe's got to be careful how to share the right thing and not give the student a certain message that's going to be, or the son, for that matter. So now if we understand that Dore Mala is a certain message, and the message of Dore Mala was, you're so far. And the Dore Mata is, you're so close. What could be dangerous?
Not getting the answer.
So you tell the guy down here, you're so close to Hashem.
If each other hear each other's answer.
What's the kasha? Remember, when you say a teretz, there's a cat. The guy's like, I'm so far. I was on, Dizengraf last night. And you tell the guy, don't worry. Maloi chal aretz kavoda. Hashem is with you. Okay, that's a teretz. But then there's going to be a makif. There's going to be a kasha on that. What's the kasha? Kash could be, really? I'm so close? Even when I did what I did? Maybe a person could think like, hey, it's like Shabbat Tzvi Machshmo. Oh. Really? I'm so close? No, the Torah says, no, you can't do Averas. You tell him, it's almost like you're telling him the teretz of Doramala. No, but you're still far. Like you can't do this. It takes you far. But then there's a teretz on that, or a kash on that. The kash is, yeah, but isn't Malay Chalaretz mamish? I feel about Astara shebitoich Astara. So it looks like if you don't have the right messaging, a person could spin out. You're so close. Really? If I go into the house of idol worship, you sure? I'm still close? No, you're far. Oh, I'm so far. A person can get lost if you say, you're so far. I'm so far. You can get depressed. It's interesting, in Dora Mala, the guy could get depressed. You're so far. So sometimes the guy in Dora Mala needs to hear that you're so close. But then he says, no, but didn't you tell me, Rebbe, that Dora Mala is like Ma? You're so far away. So it's interesting, now we're seeing the messaging like on a whole new dimension of Dora Mala and Dora Mata, and knowing how to give the messaging to each person. You see a guy coming to yeshiva, dragging his feet a little bit, 11 in the morning, he comes to shir. And you're like, so what messaging does he need?
I think it could be beneficial to let someone know that they might not be so close to like they're a little further away, because that just gives them more to work on.
That's the Dora Mala. But what if a guy's depressed?
Right.
Or let's say he's a Dora Mata. He feels like I did Averas and Hashem doesn't like me anymore.
Well, tell them that Hashem has ways of...
Hashem's right here. Hashem loves you. He's right here. So we're going to have to learn how, this is all the Rachamim from the beginning of the Torah. What does this person need now? Yeah, Moshe.
I was gonna say, I think like it's the complete opposite. Saying like you shouldn't say to someone after like they're far away. I was like, unless you know they can really handle it. Because if you go to like someone who's trying or not even that close, like you said, oh, you're really far away from them, chances are the person's gonna get super like discouraged and stop trying.
I think so too. Because he's probably Dora Mata. Yeah, then he needs to hear, like he needs a hug. Hashem loves you. Yeah, Harry?
I think it's important to kind of specify like that there's two aspects of every single whether you're Dora Mala or Dora Mata. There's like Hashem is always like gonna be close in some aspects, right? Where he's always gonna love you and he's always gonna like care for you and care for what you do. But in terms of like attaching yourself to his wisdoms and making yourself close to him in terms of values and actions, there's always an element of being far.
Oh, so we have to have both of these messages at the same time. The boy said we're going to be learning more about this idea of how to give over messaging. And this is such an ikr here in the Torah, because the whole Torah begins with Ki mirachman yinagen, which means Hainu mishu rachaman, someone who's compassionate, hu yochel is manig, he's going to be a leader. And the leader's here to give chizzuk to everybody, to help everybody, both the Dora Mala people and the Dora Mata people. The whole Torah is going to be how to help people, each person wherever they're at. The siyata d'shmaya, we should have the das, we should have the wisdom how to give over, how to give chizzuk to every single person. And the siyata d'shmaya, we're going to see the great, great days of Yamali Ha'aretz, De'es Hashem, Kamayim Liyam Mechasim, that the great days will come, that the world will be filled with das, and the world will be filled with chizzuk. And the one that will reveal this in the most exalted way will be Mashiach Tzidkeinu Sheyova B'Meher V'Yameinu Amen V'Yamein. Amen. Awasheinu B'Torah Manayim Kol Aleinu. Oh, yeah. Asheinu B'Torah. Oh, yeah. Manayim Kol Aleinu. Shabbos.